Welcome to Toffee TV. It is a Sunday afternoon. We should not be here, but it looks like, well, it's more than looks like, apart from the Everton Football Club confirming it. Marcel Brands has left his job as director of football. Basically, every single major outlet is running with this now. So it seems like it is confirmed. Looks like he is the first victim of obviously the mess we are currently in. He wouldn't be the first person I'd have sacked. I'll just say that right now. I would have looked a lot higher than him to be sacked first. But he looks like he has been sacked this afternoon. And ahead of tomorrow's game, of course, Everton have dropped another place in the league this afternoon with Leeds getting a draw. But let me just say that if Everton win tomorrow, they can go to 11th in the Premier League with a victory. So let's be positive and look at it like that. But Marcel Brands, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Oliver says, yes, let's go. Time for a rebuild. Come on. Maybe. I'm not going to argue with anyone on that. I just don't think I would have started the rebuild at the director of football. I would have looked for the chairman to have gone. I would have looked for someone to come in. I am looking for someone to come in at the very top of the club who can freshen it up, give some new ideas, take the club in a new direction, get more money into it, and get that down. Sort out the FFP situation. Listen, it's really hard because it's really hard to know whether Marcel Brands has done a bad job or a good job. No, he's been sacked. Mutual termination. He's been sacked. I don't know whether he's done a good job or a bad job, because ultimately, I don't know whether he's been allowed to do his job. Because when I hear things like, that's a Carlo player and that's a Rafa player, and to me, that's a Marco Silva player. Well, what's the point of having a director of football then, if the managers are allowed to buy their own players? I understand how it all began. It all began with a dream. It all began with Marco Silva. The dream that was Marco Silva. Why he was ever employed as the Everton manager, I'll never know. But that was the dream. The dream was he was young, up-and-coming manager that was going to be in charge of Everton Football Club for a very long time. And alongside him was going to be this experienced director of football, renowned around Europe, someone that everyone was after. And it was going to be a case of getting those players to fit the squad and mould the manager. And to be fair, Marcel Brands did not want Marco Silva sacked. He fought for him. The day after we were beaten by Liverpool, he fought for him. But early on, we started seeing cracks. The Zaha situation. Marcel Brands never wanted Zaha. The owner wanted Zaha. And the owner chased Zaha. And the owner put stuff out and used agents. The director of football never wanted him. So, straight away, early on in the relationship, you've got stress. And then he chop and change. You go from Marco Silva to Sam Allardyce. You go from Allardyce to Marco Silva. You go from Marco Silva to Carlo Ancelotti. Carlo Ancelotti to Rafa Benitez. It's different managers, different styles, different players. And the director of football is asked to somehow follow, where really it should have been him leading. So But in April, they had a chance. They had a chance to look at the situation and see what they wanted to do, and they give Marcel Brands a new 3-year contract. And here we are, December, and he's left with 2.5 years left of that contract, which will be obviously settled. And the talk is, the fella who broke this story is saying that Rafa Benitez will have even more power now, will have power over the recruitment. So Rafa Benitez isn't going anywhere by the sounds of it. So it just makes for, listen, there's a protest tomorrow, and they were looking for, they're looking for change, and that's, that's good. This is just doesn't feel like, to me, where I would have started with the change. People would disagree. His track record on some players isn't great. The right back situation. Is it a case that changing the manager so many times has hampered him as a director of football? Has it hampered him? Or has he just been looking at the wrong players in the first place? Has he been looking at completely the wrong players who are not Premier League ready, who are not got the size and, the stamina to come in at Premier League level? Have we been looking at the wrong types of players? Is that down to Brands? We'll never really know. Because I don't imagine he's going to come out and talk about it. It just doesn't feel like somewhere I would have started. I know Baz might have different opinion, and everyone can have their own opinion, of course. It just doesn't feel like somewhere I would have started. I would have liked to have started with the higher ups in the club to set the tone and set the agenda and start being ruthless and start asking questions of the structure of the club. And that to me is the biggest problem. It's the structure of the club. Is the director of football allowed to do what he's supposed to do? Is he allowed? Is he allowed to do the job he wants to do? Has he been allowed to do the job he wants to do with the academy? I don't know. So I'd ask the question: who's making those decisions? Who's got the club in such a way that there's factions and there's different people doing different things, or there's different people doing the same things? Let's be honest, getting rid of Marcel Brands today isn't really going to make a difference. In January, maybe the targets will switch. Maybe the targets were switched anyway. Have been already. But then again, that's what I'm saying. Is the guy allowed? Has the guy been allowed to do his job? Is he allowed to do his job? We'll never really fully know. We'll never know. We won't know. Maybe if we don't, maybe we mightn't get another director of football, and maybe that'll speak volumes. It seems to work at other clubs. Liverpool have got one, and it works because their manager's the main man. City got one because their manager's the main man. Other clubs, it works in different kinds of ways. I just feel like he's a bit of a scapegoat, to be honest. I really do. But maybe it's just a case of starting with him and then moving on to the next one and moving on to the next one. There's talk of Denise Banner-Baxendale looking for other opportunities. But I just forget about sacking people for a minute. I just think we need to bring in someone at the top of the club who is really good at the job, is really good at, running a football club, and his experience of it. I don't know. Meister says, only thing I'll say in Brands' defence is that he's never been allowed to pick the managers. Macheri overruled them every time, and I get he's the owner, but we're not going to allow him, have had him to complete control of football matters in the club. What's the point in the director of football? Yeah, that's a good point. The director of football hasn't been allowed to pick the managers. So therefore, it's how are you building towards something if you're not picking the managers? That's obvious. We've seen it when we brought Rafa Benitez in, and we didn't hear nothing from Marcel Brands for about a day after. There was a statement from everyone, but it didn't have his name on it. About a day after he put it on, and he said he'd been in Holland or whatever. So that's a good point about being able to pick the managers. Carl says, I literally jumped up, shouted yes, and punched the air when I heard the news. Let's hope this is the start of real change to come. Yeah, fair enough. I find it sad. I find it sad in a way. Not sad for him, just sad for the football club that this is where we are. I've seen someone in the comments then saying about Iwobi. I'm not sure he signed Iwobi. I'm really not. I'm not convinced he signed Iwobi. I'm really not. If he did, then yeah, fair enough. But I'm not convinced he signed Iwobi. So, Joe says he spent loads on Iwobi. Hasn't found a new right back, but he seemed to be the buffer against Macheri, like when we ended up signing Zaha. Joe, as I said, I'm not 100% sure that he signed Iwobi. I'm really not. And it may, one day maybe he'll come out and tell us. Be fascinating to tell us the story of his time at Everton. Yannick says, can't say I'm surprised. Something had to happen at the club, considering history keeps repeating itself over the last several years. My guess is that the Premier League might have been too much of a step up for Brands, on top of the fact that he likely never had the control true director of football. I'm glad to see some change, but can only hope he's the right person to leave. Brad says Brands is a part of the problem, but the problems run a lot deeper. Mike Cosgrove, just get rid of Rafa, bring Moyes back, and let him be in sole charge of recruitment and manager. The two above Brands need to go, and we can then get right control of the club. Jason says, well, who's coming in? Is it another of Bill's boys getting the way? Ahmed says he may have had good ideas, but he clearly had been supplemented by stronger managers and hasn't been able to guide the chairman. Probably highlights he is too weak a character to be director of football. Brad says the circus continues. How on earth do we fix Everton? Yeah, some good points there. I don't know. So, I mean, apparently, I don't know whether the new director of football will come in or someone under a different job title will come in. But apparently, Rafa Benitez is going to have more control of the recruitment. Ahmed, I think you're right. I think maybe he's not. Maybe he's not. He wasn't a strong enough voice. Maybe, but then the problem is none of us were in the room. Maybe he wasn't a strong voice. Maybe he didn't have the power to be stronger in the room. Maybe he felt outnumbered by other people. Maybe the way he wanted to do things was different from the way other people wanted to do things, and those people didn't like it. It's really hard. It's really hard to know. We just have to get to a situation, I suppose, where we are, where we move on from all this, and Everton put the right people in place. But there's no guarantees of that, is there? There's absolutely no guarantees that Everton will put the right people in the place, because there's no consistency. Yeah, this is, by the way, this is still not being confirmed by anyone at Everton Football Club. Nothing's been confirmed at anyone. But it was interesting that only minutes after, I think it might have been the Echo reported it, that there was a story in the Mail saying that Benitez was looking to sell Jordan Pickford to raise some money, which I found quite interesting. So straight away, there you go. That might be this. I don't know whether that's true or not, but straight away you've got stories coming out. Rafa Benitez wants to sell, and that I suppose that's if he is given the recruitment, then he will have the power to sell people. So, let's have a look. Dean says, yes, I'm against Rafa getting all control of transfers, but at least we can then rate him on that. He alone will be criticised. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Just one less chief, isn't it? Max says, I hope he speaks out in the Dutch media. That would be interesting. Well, if he's getting a big payoff, I imagine he'll have a non-disclosure. Mikey says, hopefully Bill and Denise will follow. Joe says, you're going to approach him for a tell-all interview. I don't think I've got the money. Brad says, was he involved in players going out on loan? No left-back covering young striker sent to Sunderland. The young striker was rubbish and will never play for Everton ever again, I imagine. And Nkunku needed to go on loan because he wasn't good enough for the Premier League. But we should have brought someone else in for the year on loan. Maybe someone a little bit with a bit more experience. But they're not good examples at all. They're two players who I don't think would have made a difference. Broadhead's rubbish. Broadhead will never make it at Everton. Julian Clark says, do you think Brands has paid the price for the mobile phone clip of him undermining Benitez? Someone from the club's hierarchy actually being honest with the fans about the situation behind the scenes, steps out of line and gets the chop. Maybe, who knows? It was slightly embarrassing video. I don't think he should be really commenting on stuff like that. Michael Cosgrove says, remember a month ago, I did a Tuesday topic asking, would Everton be better off without director of football? And I think they would, only with a manager you believe in and are united behind. Unfortunately, it's not going to be Rafa. No, listen, Mike, if it was David Moyes or someone like that, then you're right. But most clubs have directors of footballs. Chelsea, Man United have sort of got one, and Ragnick will probably become that at the end of the season. Liverpool have got one. Ironically, he's leaving at the end of the season. City have got one. It's just that their remits are different. Their remits are, certainly Liverpool, is that they speak, they talk to each other about players, and the guy will go out and find the best players he can with using all the information, very stats heavy, and probably come back, give them to Klopp. Klopp will look at them and go, I want this one, and then they'll go and get it. It's just that our one has been put on such a high pedestal, and he was running the club. Essentially, that it doesn't really leave you anywhere to go. I think, and the irony is, Moyes had a big recruitment team. He had a big recruitment team when he was in charge. It's just that we never had a director of football. We never had this overarching fella leading it. So I think so that recruitment team will stay. That recruitment team will be there. It's just that it feels like now it's under Rafa Benitez's charge, which means Rafa Benitez has got more power out of this, which basically suggests that Rafa Benitez isn't going anywhere. And in fact, this will strengthen Rafa Benitez's hand. So if anything's come out of it, it'll be that. But the recruitment team will still be there. The same things still happen. Manager wants player, sends out his recruitment team to find the player, comes back and says, yeah, it's 5 or 6. Who do you think? And the difference is when it's a director of football, I suppose there's more than just that. It's you are the director of football for the entire football club. You lead the clubs in its direction. Well, it sounds like Moshiri has just handed that power over to Rafa Benitez and put all his trust into Rafa Benitez to do that. Which, if you wanted him out, is slightly worrying. I would suggest slightly worrying. Chris Burns says hopefully Duncan will get some say in recruitment too, because he's been coaching these players. He won't. I mean, he'll sit down. I'm sure they'll sit down and go through the coaching and stuff. But Rafa Benitez, from what I'm led to believe, is very single-minded. He doesn't it's his decision, and he makes the decision. So, Mitchell, I do not think he's resigned, mate. I don't think he's resigned. So it's definitely a case of Rafa Benitez will get more power out of this, because maybe Everton will be reluctant. Sounds like Everton will be reluctant probably in the short term to go and get another director of football. They need to get their house in order in the short term, and I don't think bringing in another director of football at this time is gonna help. Stephen Guy says, if it's just Brands, then I'm underwhelmed. A sacrificial lamb is of no use. Bill Kenwright. Sorry, the light shining. Bill Kenwright goes, then we know change is real. Also, can we stop saying he can stay on as life present or whatever? That just means the smell will linger. No, I agree. I don't understand why he's still at the football club. I honestly don't. I really don't. Brad says, if Rafa has control, I look forward to Andy Carroll. He's gone to Reading. We're not going to leave Reading for us. Matt says, if he didn't sign Iwobi, then he didn't have enough bollocks or influence to convince them not to sign Iwobi, so I still think it's fine to put at least some of the blame on him for Iwobi, considering he's literally our worst signing ever. And if it happened while Brands was directing the football. No, I agree with that, Matt. That's a good point. I agree with that. And that's where, as someone said before, I think it was Ahmed, he's been weak. Why did he sign the new contract? Why did he sign the new contract? If he had his hands tied, then why stay on at the football club? I know that's a point Baz makes a lot of the time, is why did he stay? Why didn't he just walk out and say, you've tied me hands here? So, it's been a little bit too easy for him. Ethan says, do you think we could tempt Moyes back if we... No. Why would you leave West Ham to come back to us? I wouldn't leave West Ham to come back to us. He's got everything he wants at West Ham. Absolutely everything he wants. Why are people talking about Hazard? Hazard is not signing for Everton. The Baxendale, just on Denise Barrett Baxendale, it was basically someone on Twitter who gets stuff right. Basically said that she was actively looking for a new job, and has been. Apparently, in the Telegraph, this is what they're reporting, saying that the problems have piled up in recent months against Brands' wishes. The club appointed Rafa Benitez. He did business directly with owner Farhad Mashiri to attract new players and sideline Brands. And don't forget, Marcel Brands signed that contract in April as well, before Carlo Ancelotti had left, and obviously before Rafa Benitez had come in. Tony Grant, ex-Everton player, says, we normally throw the manager under the bus. Now we've thrown the director of football. The correct decision for me, but only the tip of the problem. Fair enough. I think Marcel Brands might have let Tony go at Everton. M says we need answers as why he hasn't brought in a right back in 3 years, why he never bothers with January market, why he loaned out Moise Keane for 3 years. Well, he loaned out Moise Keane because Moise Keane's not just doesn't seem to have the right temperament for Everton Football Club at all. He's not settled in, and he hasn't really didn't really do anything in the Premier League. Did nothing coming off the bench. He doesn't really seem to be doing anything at Juventus. So that's why I would imagine. He just wasn't good enough. It begs the question why he brought him in the first place. But Brad says, can someone from the club come out and tell us what the plan is for the future, from the youth teams right to the first team? Let's get our identity back. Be nice if the club just confirmed he'd left. And Michael Cosgrove says, if Brands was hamstrung to do his job, which looks likely, then him going is only a positive, as we will save wages and makes things more clear on the club. However, if Bill Kenwright and Denise Barrett Baxendale survived too, then it just feels like a decision that was being made for the wrong reasons. As 6 months ago, the club felt like the guy was worthy of a new contract. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's just there's talking of Brands has been linked to Newcastle apparently. I don't really care. It's done now. It's done. It doesn't really matter, does it? It doesn't matter what happens next. It's done. And Everton have to sort this problem out, fast. They have to sort this problem out fast and get to a situation where we're all a lot happier with the table. That'll be the big first thing. Get some points on the board. Get 3 points tomorrow. We can go to 11th. Get points on the board. Get through this chaotic period. Settle the club down. Tell us what they're doing. If they're giving Rafa Benitez a bigger remit to bring players in, and they're not going to have a director of football, then tell us. If they're bringing another director in football in, tell us. Just tell us. Tell the fans what the plan is. I mean, tell us that Marcel Brands has left his job for a start, but tell us what's going on. If you're giving Rafa Benitez more of a role, then don't be scared to tell us, because if that's what you're doing, then do it. Be honest, be open. Tomorrow there's going to be a protest. Tomorrow on the 27th minute. Whether people agree with it or don't agree with it, people have decided enough is enough, and they're gonna do something about it. And because the club is in a mess, and we need more than just this decision on Marcel Brands. As I said, I feel like we need new people at the top of the club running it and getting a structure in place and an ethos running through the club, because this club it was stagnating. Now it's not even stagnating. Now it's going backwards. Simple as that. But it seems like Rafa Benitez has got obviously the power in January to bring in who he wants. And it sounds like from what that article in the Telegraph says is that it's always been the case, that he's always had that power. Yeah, so I think the protest is still going ahead. So there's no difference in that. Quite a few people talking about Nkunku in the chat. Listen, the manager last season saw Nkunku play against Newcastle and pretty much decided right there that he wasn't good enough. And that's why we barely saw him for the rest of the season, because the manager didn't think he was good enough. The club don't think he's good enough. That's why they sent him on loan for games of football. He shouldn't even have been in the first team squad last season. Should have been with the ad. He should have been sent straight out on loan or with the under-23s. But because Leighton Baines retired, he went into the squad. So they've sent him on loan this season. They should have brought someone in loan, maybe an experienced player as a backup, someone there, but they failed to. Like, they failed to do so many stuff, so many things. So, yeah. And it's sort of the same on the other side as well. You've got a backup right back, but no one believes he's good enough, and he's only there for emergencies. Let's just see what happens now. The manager might feel like he's got a little bit of freedom. I don't know. I don't know what this will change, if it'll change anything. It gives us one less person to blame. But I don't think criticism will be going away if the results don't pick up. Simple as that. If the results don't start getting don't start getting results. Sorry, it was Dennis Machete. He's the worst businessman I've ever seen. If we don't start picking up results, then this isn't going to go away. Nicky says, I wonder if the process will still go ahead. Yes, I believe they are. Ethan says, what's the bet in Everton? Leave the announcement until half-time during the game tomorrow. Paz says, the fans have put pressure on the team, and rightly so, for our position. However, there was nothing the board could have done until January. So to appease the fans, they've done this move. Hopefully let's forget the process and get behind. Oh, protest is still going on. Paul Roberts says, getting rid of the director of football mid-season is stupid and typically impetuous decision from Machete, who thinks short-term and also lets someone else be the fall guy. He is hopeless. Rick said, we have no idea how much Brands is directly to blame, but in terms of the squad development, it's time the job has been a disaster. Fair enough. There you go. Yeah, let's see what happens. Let's see when Everton officially confirm it, and let's see what the statement says, and let's see what happens. I don't know. We'll see what happens. There you go. Yeah, so Marcel Brands has left Everton. I don't know whether more will follow, but I suppose the evidence won't be probably filled. Won't come out till we won't know the evidence till January when we start signing players. Hopefully, if we do sign players, but and I'm sure sometime this evening it will be confirmed by the football club. So I have to wait and see whether it's a short statement, a long statement, whether Farhad Machete comes out and does an interview, whether anyone at the club comes out and does an interview, explains the decision, explains where we're going, what we're doing. I don't know. You get very, very little out of Everton. I suppose this is an opportunity for them to come out and start speaking to the fans and telling us what happens next. So, we'll see. Everton, I imagine, will confirm it once it's all done, and once the contract is completely sorted. Yeah, so we'll have to just wait till then. So there you go. Thank you for joining me. I just wanted to jump on to have a chat about it. So yeah, there you have it. If any more comes out, we'll let you know. Stay tuned. See you all later.